do that right now. Get that logistics stuff out the way now. There we go. So this session is now being recorded as well. So if you would like a refresher, we can talk more about how you can receive that information. But if you like a refresher, we will make sure that serve you and get you that information. So without further ado, we're going to get started with our topic for the night, the event, the one you have been waiting for. I'm certainly excited tonight that God has made Tim McCleskey Jr. way here with us tonight. So when we talk about money, we've been kind of hitting certain topics, different topics each week by very, very dynamic speakers, and their expertise has really enriched the lives of young people. And so tonight we have a special guest speaker. He's a visionary and leader in financial benefit counseling. He's been doing that work for 18 years. Timothy McCleskey Jr. is a Nashville native. And for the past 8 years, Tim has conducted workshops and one-on-one consulting sessions with federal employees where he teaches them how to understand their behavior with money. And from the book, he's also an author, publishing the book called The Volcanic, Eruption of Debt. Tim helps people to effectively see how the money they currently have is being managed, and encourages his clients by teaching the 4 legs of the balance system to quickly eliminate debt so they are able to retire in financial comfort. And so again, joining us tonight, Tim is a man of God. He is a well connected individual. And what's special about him is that he loves helping people, young adults, just like you, build their debt-free life. And so as you listen to his story, you'll notice the power in your own voice when you leave here today to discover some tools and some strategies to implement, or simply connecting with him one-on-one so that you can live a debt-free life. And so today he'll be sharing some information regarding retirement, the psychology of money, and more. And so let us welcome Timothy McCleskey Jr. To the Open Mic Night virtual stage. And so Tim, it's so good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, good to be seen. Good to be seen, man.
Absolutely.
Decent alternative.
Yes.
I figure I'm gonna do like Sand and Crystal. I'm just gonna say something God has done for me.
Go ahead, sir.
I'm thinking about this week. You're right. We go through so much, and I was listening to John Maxwell. If you're familiar with him, he's what I call the guru of leadership. John Maxwell has written probably over 150 books on leadership. And one of the I was listening to him this morning when I was at the gym, and he was talking about faith over fear. And I was thinking, I've been kind of apprehensive on my next book, and it's just been in my head. It's been in my head. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get to this. And finally, I was praying about it last night, and it's so great when you get these confirmations from God. It's just wonderful getting these confirmations. So I'm like, okay, go ahead and start. I said, so while I was praying this morning, I was like, okay, the Holy Spirit has helped me in this instance, and it helped me in this instance, and it helped me when I was writing my first book, and when I came over with the 4 legs of balance. It just came out of the blue. Okay, so I need the Holy Spirit to help me, and all of a sudden, I started thinking about stuff. Started just thinking. I said, okay, it's something I got to do. So that God is always doing things because ultimately He wants the glory. Yep. So if I can do something that can help somebody else so He can get the glory, I'm excited. So I be looking forward to the next book, Lord willing, within the next 6 months. And it's really just about helping people to understand how to be content while they eliminate debt. A lot of times we just want the debt to go away. We want to consolidate. No, it takes time because it's all about behavior. But it's learning how to be content, just like Paul, learning how to be content while we eliminate debt. So I'm going to jump right on in because what I like to do when I do a lot of workshops, I like to get to the PowerPoint, get it done, and then just do some Q&A. So if that's fair for everybody else, we'll just kind of jump right on in. Okay, I'm gonna see if I can everybody see that screen there, okay?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Okay, so it's interesting to ask this question because nobody's probably looking at retiring just yet. But I always ask the question, how many people do not want to retire? And the reason I ask the question is especially when I'm dealing with federal employees. So daily, I'm talking to federal employees, helping them plan and prepare for retirement. Pre-COVID, I was in some different federal office doing workshops, and people would always give me this perplexing look, like, what do you mean? I thought this was a retirement seminar. Well, the reason I asked the question is because what are you doing? I mean, if you know at some point you're no longer going to work in your career and you need resources to sustain your life, what is it that you're actually doing? So I asked kind of a rhetorical question. How many people do not want to retire? See, when people think about the notion of retiring, everybody talks about traveling, spending time with family, just relaxing, going to the beach, shopping, all of these wonderful things, which you can do if you have a great plan. But the reality is most of the people I see, this is what they look like. They are shocked when they figure out what they're going to get when it's time to retire. And a lot of times it comes down to what they've done with their resources. So I'll tell you a story about, I've been working with federal agencies for about 11 years. And about 8 years ago, I sat down with one federal employee. He had worked for 30 years for the federal government. He's going to receive a pension. Now, most companies now don't offer pensions. And if you're not familiar with the pension, it's money that you put in to a pot with this organization, the company you work with, and you get a monthly check very similar to Social Security for the rest of your life. Well, this gentleman was going to get a pension. Now, he was considered civil service. So at that time when he was hired, he didn't pay into Social Security. So he wasn't going to get Social Security, just his pension. Well, by the time we got done going over all of his benefits, his income was going to go from a little over $63,000 a year to about $31,000 a year. So it's going to cut in half. But what we did from that point is we took all of the debt that he had, all of his living expenses, and he was about $1,900 in the hole. And what I told him was, you need to work about 10 more years. Now, of course, he didn't like it and his wife didn't like it, but numbers are numbers. One thing numbers don't do, numbers don't lie. I mean, we're using very specific information. I take their own paycheck, their own codes from their paycheck, and whatever those numbers say, that's what it's going to be. The good thing is I'm able to project where somebody's going to be 10, 15, 20 years before they get there. Well, unfortunately for him, he wanted to retire about 8 months after I saw him. So you don't want to be one of those people in that boat. So the question I tend to ask is, where do you sit in preparation for retirement? What I mean by this is, do you plan to have a mortgage? You really can pay your house off before you retire. That's not a misnomer. It is real. It can be done. Do you plan to have a car loan? I love when I meet with people and people, one of the things that people want to buy when they retire is that retirement car. Now, one of the questions I always ask is, I get it. I understand it. You want to reward yourself. But if you know your income's going to decrease anywhere between 20 and up to 60%, why would you go and increase your debt by $500, $600, or $700 a month after retirement? And we really don't think about it like that. We just think, okay, I worked 30 years. I deserve this. Really? Do you deserve more debt? And then student loans. There's this notion that we cannot pay them off. Well, there's a system. You can pay off your student loans. One thing that people don't realize is student loan debt, the reason it's so bad is because most people's student loan debt is we pay interest on, has an annual percentage rate, like credit cards, your car, your home. But most student loan debts have a daily rate unless you refinance with the right kind of company. We can talk a little bit about that if you have student loan debt. But most of them have a daily rate. And so you're wondering, you're paying $200 or $300 a month and the numbers just don't seem to be going down. That's because you're paying a daily rate, okay? And then credit cards with no end in sight. What you don't want to be is one of those people that retire and you can't afford to get your car fixed. This is your maintenance plan when you don't have your money in order. This when you got too much debt, you got to tote the note, you got to do all kinds of stuff that you really don't want to do. So Who's presently getting your money? Now, just think about that for a minute. One of the exercises that I give my clients is called 30 days of spending. It's a form that I have them to fill out. And the 30 days of spending form is where, and I love when I explain it because they think one thing, but I'm actually going back and having them do something different. When I say, okay, I want you to complete a 30 days of spending form. And they think, okay, I got to write down what I spend for the next 30 days. No, sir. What I want you to do is take your last bank statement, write down every transaction. And each transaction, the amount you spent, is going to go into one of three categories. It's either an expense or an essential. So that's like your gas, your groceries, your giving, your cable bill, your phone bill, things of that nature. Then you have your debt column. So if you're paying debt, car note, mortgage, credit cards, things of that nature, everything you paid out of the bank account goes into that column. Any other money you spent, that's considered miscellaneous spending. I had a gentleman do this exercise. He turned it in on Monday. He said, Tim, I can't believe it. I can't believe we spent $800 last month on eating out. I said, I can. Because most people spend a lot of money on what they consider a necessity, because it's just based on behavior, consistency in behavior. So the assumption is, this is just what I normally do. It's normal. It's right. You don't feel anything about it. So we just go about doing it. But you can't change what you don't know. If you look at this particular scripture, I like it because we always sometimes hear stories about we need to set goals, we need to plan, we need to put things in order. Well, here in Luke 14, verses 28 through 30, and we may have all heard this. It says, for which of you intend to build a tower does not sit down first and count the cost, whether he has enough to finish it, lest after he has laid the foundation, he's not able to finish. And all who see it begin to mock him, saying, this man began to build and was not able to finish. Nobody wants to not finish something they started, especially if you spend money. So then how much money do you actually need? You know, I ask this question when I'm doing workshops. I say, how much money do you need to retire comfortably? And I had one lady, I was in Denver, lady raised her hand. She said, I want my bank account to look like a phone number. And at first I thought, like a phone number? What is she talking about? She said, yeah, I want my bank account to be long like a phone number. I said, oh, like a phone number. She said, yeah. And then don't you know, it sounded so good. Other folks say, yeah, I want my bank account to look like a phone number. I want my 401k to look just like a phone number. I said, really? Are you sure? I got them hyped up. She said, yeah, I'm sure. That's exactly what I said. Are you really, really sure? And she said, yeah, that's what I want. I said, your bank account to look like a phone number. I said, okay, there you go. 911. There's your bank account. It looks just like a phone number. And folks started laughing, and she had this little scrunched up look on her face. And one of the things that I said was, look, you can't just come out of the blue and say, oh, I want this. You have to plan and prepare. So really what it comes down to is, what do you know about self? For example, how long do you expect to live once you retire? I mean, right now, you might not be thinking, well, I'm not retiring yet. But here's the reality. The IRS projects that you are going to live 20 to 25 years retired. That means well into your 80s. That's not based on health. That's based on census information. So when you look at that, if you retire at 60 or 62, or even as early as 55, statistically, you're expected to live 30 years retired with less income, and the rate of inflation is continuing to increase. So what's the plan for that? Do you plan to have more money, or do you plan to have debt? Now, I don't know what kind of jobs you all have, but do you have any idea when you're actually eligible to retire? You know, it's interesting. There is a system that the federal government has for federal employees and when they can retire at different stages. And if you have a pension, most companies will let you know, there's a way when you should retire, when you can retire. States, government and federal government, they have that. And if you work for a company that has a retirement plan, you want to know when you are eligible and what you're going to receive. You don't have to wait till then. Normally you can contact HR now and find out, okay, When am I eligible and what should I receive? And they normally have a formula for it. Well, what about Social Security? A lot of people recognize you'll get Social Security, but Social Security at 100% doesn't come at age 62. Now, most people think I'm going to retire at 62, but you don't get your full Social Security at 62. You only get 75%. In fact, you can only make $18,000 a year in a part-time job if you take your Social Security at 62. Otherwise, you get penalized. So do you know when you're eligible? And I bring Social Security up because if you don't have a pension, the only thing that you're going to have to fall back on is your 401k, what you're putting in that, and Social Security. Okay? 100% Social Security for some comes around age 67. For most of us, just looking at pictures, it's probably going to be 70. Okay? So you have to be prepared. How much are you going to receive? It's interesting when you look at a 401k plan, if you have $300,000 in a 401k, no, if you have $600,000 in a 401k plan, and you're choosing to take your Social Security 62, and your Social Security is only $1,500, but you need $4,000 a month to live. Now, you may not need that today, but we're talking maybe 10, 20, or 30 years from now. So if you need $4,000 a year, how long do you think that $600,000 is going to last? You're going to need about $40,000 a year. So in 10 years, that's $400,000 that's gone. So most of your money's gone. So it's all about planning and preparing. I think it's kind of interesting when I meet with some federal employees and they say, yeah, I don't have to pay taxes on my 401k. Yes, you do. Well, I thought after a certain age, you didn't pay taxes. There's only one time when you don't pay taxes, after you die. That's when you don't pay taxes. Okay? But outside of that, you're going to pay taxes. So let's put it into perspective, okay? Let's say that you notice here at the top, I have that if you're single, we're looking at the old tax brackets. And when I say old tax bracket, in 2017, we have a new bracket. But in 2025, we're going back to the old bracket, barring Congress making any changes. So if you're single and your income is between 37 and 91,000, or if you're married and your income is between 75 and 153,000, you're at a 25% tax bracket. Here's the interesting thing though, you don't pay that right now because you're employed, okay? You have something called deductions, and some of you may have dependents. So when you have deductions and dependents, you don't pay your full tax bracket. I had an appointment at 6 o'clock right before our meeting. And the gentleman I spoke to, he makes $84,000 a year. He's married. His household income puts him in a position with his wife where they are at a 25% tax bracket, but he only pays 8.9% in federal taxes. You know why? He has deductions and he has dependents. But when you retire, you no longer have those deductions. And hopefully you don't have dependents. Every once in a while I see somebody, a man, he's 60 and he got a 10-year-old, and I'm just looking at him like, but you know what? And that happens. So you have to be prepared. But look at this here. In this scenario, when somebody retires, their pension is going to be around $14,000. $14,000 for somebody that had a $60,000 a year income. So they're going to be at a 15% tax bracket. They still don't have a whole lot of money, right? Well, wait a minute. We're going to get Social Security. Okay, let's say you get your Social Security. I added in Social Security. That puts their income at $29,000. Now they're still at a 15% tax bracket, but they're only getting about $2,000 a month net. Well, I got a 401k, got my 401k. Okay, let's say you add $500 a month for $6,000 a year. Now you're still at a 15% tax bracket. Don't decide to take $1,000 a month out of the 401k, because remember, you go back up at the top. If your income is over 37, that single person now is at a 25% bracket. So now all of a sudden you're trying to decide, do I eat more? Do I live real frugal? Or do I just pay the piper and pay more taxes? But it comes down to planning, because you can be very comfortable in retirement if you plan. Or you can look like this. Y'all remember when you got your job, when you got your career? And you said, oh, they're gonna pay me this salary, they're gonna pay me this great
Yes,
salary,
sir.
and then you get your paycheck. And you're like, what? Yep, because they take out taxes and they take out the insurance and take out for your 401k and your dental plan and your health plan and all this other stuff. And then you get that net pay. Well, the same thing's gonna happen when you retire. You're gonna pay taxes, and this is kind of what it's gonna look like. So you gotta be careful. Don't think you're gonna just go shopping when you retire. You can't do that. You gotta plan, gotta be ready. So we look at something about being content and being happy where you are. I love what Zig Ziglar said. Zig used to be the guru of sales. And he said, you can own everything in the world, but if you lack contentment, you'll never be happy. That means you'll constantly want more. And we see a lot of people in leadership positions, particularly with this last election, a lot of people in leadership positions, they just want more and more and more because they're never going to be happy. It's never enough, never enough. So here's one thing you have to understand. Let's look at what the scripture says about this. Paul says, not that I speak in regard to need, for I've learned in whatever state I am to be content. I know how to be abased and I know how to abound. That means I know how to have little and I know how to have a lot. Everywhere and in all things, I've learned both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need. But I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So what does this mean? Because we've heard that, right? I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Okay. So when you get your stimulus check, and when you get that, you might be getting a refund check, and you want that new Apple Watch, because I know Apple come out with a new watch every year, right? I mean, it's the same watch, same watch. They come out with something new every year where you have to learn contentment. So this is your contentment right here. There's your Apple Watch right there. There you go. That's contentment. You just wait. Just hold your horses a little bit for a bit. Okay? It'll come at it. And you know what's so crazy is in a couple of years, that same watch will be half the cost. Same watch. Okay? So I'll tell you this story. You don't want to allow things to distract you, to cost you money as you prepare to retire. This is a picture of Yogi Berra and Hank Aaron in the '57 World Series. And you may know those names, Hank Aaron and Yogi Berra. They were just really, really great ball players. And but they had a great respect and regard for one another. Well, in this World Series, Hank Aaron was going up to bat. And he's getting himself together. Now I got to tell you something I didn't know this about baseball, but it makes sense. We're normally in the stands or watching it on television, so we really don't know what kind of interactions going on between the batter and the catcher. But the batter's job is to hit the ball. The catcher's job is to talk trash to the batter. So, typically when a batter goes up and, the catcher, he has on a mask, so you really can't see his face and you can't hear him, but he's talking trash. He's talking about their mama, their family, anything to distract him from doing his job and hitting the ball. Now, even though the batter knows that the catcher is going to talk trash, no matter what team they play, they know what's going to happen. They know they have to focus on hitting the ball. They still get distracted. So here, Hank Aaron, he told Yogi, or Yogi told Hank Aaron, he said, you need to hold the bat so you can read the label. Now, actually, he wasn't telling him anything bad. Because if you hold the bat the wrong way, you can break the bat, you can hurt your wrist. So he was telling him something good. He said, you're going to break that bat. You need to hold the bat so you can read the label. But guess what happened? Hank Aaron hit a home run. And when he was going around the bases and came back and trotted in and hit home plate, he looked back and said, I didn't come up here to read a label. Because he was focused on what he intended to do. How many times have we gone to the grocery store with a list in our hand, intending to only get what we go in with the list? And then we end up getting more than what was on the list. We got distracted, right? And it happens all the time. So how do we get distracted? Where's your money going? Once I started spending my own money, I realized Mom was right. We got food at home. How often do we just go out and spend money on food? But I can't tell you how many times my parents were like, we're going to eat at the house. Your McDonald's is at home in the refrigerator. I'm going to make you a burger. My son thinks Chick-fil-A grows on trees. I'm like, bro, seriously? I mean, we can't go to Chick-fil-A every day. But most people spend a lot of their money on eating out. Or this, who's getting your money? You said you would take a break from Amazon. The boxes on the porch determined that was a lie. That's me. Yeah, I tell you what, I mean, I can't tell you how many times that I have had to deal with that. And then, how much of your money are they getting? When you forget you have a bill on auto pay and you get an email saying, thank you for your payment. Oh, you ain't going out this weekend because your money just got taken. Yeah, because you didn't plan, you didn't think, okay, this money's going, I forgot all about it. See, we don't forget about Netflix and Hulu because that's a little bit of money. But what about that student loan money or your car note money when they take it out automatically? And all of a sudden that money's gone. You're like, who got my money? Yeah, the car note people got your money. That's what happens. So what I did, I wrote a book about 2.5 years ago called The Volcanic Eruption of Debt. Erupting debt with money you already have. So what I found is when federal employees who get a pension, have a 401k, they call a thrift savings plan, and then they have, most of them will have Social Security. That's 3 pieces of money. That's still not enough for about 60% of the people I was seeing. And what I found is it wasn't the fact that their income was going to decrease. Most of us realize that when we retire, our income may decrease by about 20 to 60%. The problem was they still had the same debt as if they were still employed. So what I had to do was start helping people plan and prepare for retirement, but helping them to also see you don't need to make more money. You just need to manage the money you already have. And so I just finished a workbook last year, and that's why I'm looking now and writing a book based on contentment. But this is a simple, easy read. I told people a 15-year-old can read it in 2 days. And what it does, it gives you exercises and helps you to really see how you behave with money. A lot of times people want to budget. The word budget is not even in the book. I remember reading somewhere, somebody said, we're Americans, we don't budget. Do they budget in Congress? No. They say there's a budget, but when you really think about it, how come we're in a deficit? It's because people are just using money arbitrarily, thinking it's always going to be there. I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and Nashville's a tourist city. So you go down on 2nd Avenue, and until last year, my wife and I just bought a home, but we live 5 minutes from downtown, and it's gobs of people in downtown Nashville. Country Music USA, right? Always a lot of people. There were supposed to be over 500 conventions, not just people visiting, but conventions in 2020. Well, guess what happened? My mama calls it the COVID. We had the COVID. And because of the COVID, guess how many conventions got canceled? 500. All of them got canceled. So that tax revenue they were going to get from sales, the city didn't get. Guess what the city did in Davidson County in Nashville, Tennessee? They increased property taxes by 34%. That's not an exaggeration. That's the truth. They increased property taxes by 34%. Why? Because they thought they were going to get some money that didn't come in. Have you ever thought you were supposed to get some money and then it didn't come, and then you're like, okay, but you spent it before it came, like you knew it was still going to come, but it didn't come? Well, that's what happened with Nashville, Tennessee. And we do that all the time. So I teach a system called the 4 legs of balance: the leg of awareness, the leg of freedom, the leg of retirement, and the leg of savings. And when you put all these resources together, you're able to eliminate your debt in about 20% of the time with money you already have. And the beauty behind it is you're able then to take that same money, because your debt is now paid faster, and dump more into savings, more into your 401k plan. And then you can decide when you want to retire and how you want to retire. Even if it's 20 or 30 years away, it's nice when you have a plan in place, because you can still go to Starbucks and go on trips and enjoy yourself. But when you have a plan, this doesn't skirt that plan and curtail it. You need that extra $500, you now got it because you have no debt. So that's the PowerPoint. Let me escape that. And I'm open to any questions. I'm gonna stop my share here. Any questions that anybody has, please. I'm open. I love answering questions. Be careful what you ask, because I'm gonna tell you the truth.
Yeah. Man, you said a mouthful, Tim. You got the comments going. You got them going. Um, I really appreciate that. I do have a question, and I want to kind of get to the core of who you are, Tim, to the folks
Okay.
that don't know. So I want to start at the core, before the book, or before uh, the presence that you have now, right? Like who is Timothy? What was your background, your hometown, your upbringing? You kind of help us
Yeah.
understand, help us.
Oh yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm a native of Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm just like any other regular old person. And what I mean by that is, I grew up in Nashville. My dad was one of the associate ministers at Schrader Lane Church of Christ. Um,
Yeah.
my mom is an educator. She just retired last year. And, I was one of those kids where everybody just assumed I was going to preach. My grandfathers were preachers. And so I did everything to prove to them I wasn't going to preach. Oh my goodness, I was the prodigal son. Yes, I was. I went to the University of Tennessee, had a good time, played, and my father said, "You're not trying to study. Come on back home." And it took me a while to finish my degree, but I got an associate's and a bachelor's in psychology. And what I've always enjoyed doing was helping people to just become better. And that's the gift that God has given to me. That's my talent, that's my gift, and that's what I enjoy. And I would do it for free. Um, but what I ended up doing is I ended up selling insurance to small businesses, uh, health insurance. Now this is amazing because back in, I think this was around 1998, my brother had graduated from Fisk University and he had a degree in business and Spanish. And we just assumed he was going to take this job with the Bank of America. I mean, he has a degree in finance, so naturally going to work for a bank. I was managing Miss Winters. I don't know if y'all know what Miss Winters is. It's a fast food restaurant. Lee's and Miss Winters. It's like KFC. I was making $362 a week, working 40, 50, 60 hours. My brother, I went to my parents' house one day and my brother I asked him if he's going to take the job with Bank of America. He said, no, I'm not going to take the job. I'm selling insurance. I said, selling insurance? Are you serious? So when I thought about insurance, I thought a plaid coat with an attache case, just like a little used car salesman. That's what I thought they looked like. And he said, yeah. And he said, they're my checks right there. And he showed me two checks. And one was $800 and one was like $1,100. And I said, wait a minute, at the bank, you get paid bi-weekly. Your money's the same. This money not even the same. Oh, they messing you up. He said, no, those are my weekly checks. I said, excuse me? Now I was making $362 a week. My brother, who's 5 years younger than me, was making three times what I was making. I said, whatever you're doing, I need to learn how to do it. I could not afford to get my license. My brother paid for me to get my license. And I love telling the story because a lot of times when people look at where I am now, they look at where I am now and they think, yeah, but you got this. Oh, no. Let me tell you where I came from. Let me tell you what I didn't have. And I went ahead, got my license, and the rest is history. And about 11 years ago, I started working with federal agencies, helping federal employees plan and prepare for retirement. And I loved it. I enjoyed it. But I've noticed that people just couldn't afford to retire. And about 4 years ago now, I started coordinating the financial peace course that Dave Ramsey has, if you're familiar with him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And we used to coordinate at church. So I was the host coordinator at Schrader. And so I would try to mix in some financial peace and retirement, and it just wasn't working well. So I went to a town hall meeting in 2018, and I met Chris Hogan, who works with Dave Ramsey. And I explained, my challenge. And Chris Hogan has this real deep voice, black guy, real deep voice. He said, you need to write a book. And I was like, okay. And hence birthed the volcanic eruption of debt.
Wow.
I went to the EC, the Entrepreneur Center, worked with someone who helps people who self-publish. and I was able to write my book, and the rest is history now. I've been working with federal agencies for 11 and a half years now. Love it. Love it.
Awesome. I like what you said. You mentioned become better. And one of my core beliefs is health, wealth, and spirituality. And I use the word saw, right? Or was, right? Um, the word saw, when you flip it, it says was. So you was, right before the book, you was working a low paying job, you was maybe going through some hopeless situations, some barriers financially. And it started with some struggles that you endured, but you saw yourself becoming the man you are now, right? Through
Mhm.
God's guidance, through his working of the Holy Spirit. And now you are um, a servant leader, okay, in the realm of finances. And so it's good that you made a name for yourself, because I can attest to you. My grandfather, my dad's a minister, two of his brothers, my uncles are current ministers. So of course that question comes to comes to you, hey, are you going to preach? Are you going to preach? You're like, well, there's I feel like there are many callings that we have, right? We have many roles, we have many titles, but there also is a godly title to that. And so I'm glad to hear you say that you want to help people become better, because you became better, right?
Yeah.
Through your
Yeah.
situation and through his Holy Spirit. So I really appreciate that for sharing that. And so I want to
Definitely.
open the floor. And now it's time for the Q&A. If you have any questions related to Tim's presentation or his upbringing that he's just shared, I'll open the floor to you. And so at this time, if you have any questions or comments that you would like to share in the chat, or you can unmute yourself, and we'll get going. I also want to thank those that are watching on Facebook too, as well. We haven't forgot about you. I see you in the comments, Josie Stevens, Chrissy Brown. She's a friend of the show as well. So if you have any questions for Tim, feel free to fire away. So he's here, uh, ready to answer and ready to help. Um, and so the book, I know the book is out right now, Tim. Um,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
and I definitely will get a copy of that, because you mentioned
What
some
I'll
easy
do is
things
I'll
you wrote.
show, I want to share with, and I think Sam was going to ask a question. I could be wrong. Sam, were you going to ask something?
Yes, I was. Hi. Um, I have a question. I know
Sure.
we learned about different ways to save for retirement. There are 401ks. I know if you're a teacher, we have the TRS. What is the best way to save for retirement?
What is the best way to
Hmm.
save for retirement? Now, are you speaking of in terms of an investment or just saving itself?
Investment. Like I said,
Okay.
I know TRS is for school teachers. We have that, and then some people will save for retirement through stocks, investing in stocks. So what would be like the best way or method as far
Okay.
as saving?
Okay. So this is just my opinion. Okay. One of the things I'll tell you what I tell all federal employees. The first thing you want to do is if you have an investment opportunity with the company you work for. So in your case, if you're teaching, I want you to get well versed on the 403B or 401k that you have with your job first. Why? Because even though it may be a 403B, it's still like a 401k. The rules are still the same. But what you want to do is find out how much they match and make sure you're doing at least the matching. And then find out what funds you're invested in. One of the challenges I find many times is people are investing, but they don't have a working knowledge of what they're investing in. They're just investing. So the assumption is, well, since I'm investing, something's going to happen. Well, you have to know what you're investing in. So you want to find out where your money's going within the investment, even if it's your 401k. Are they aggressive funds? Are they moderately aggressive? That means that they're not really aggressive, a little bit, but not a whole lot. Or are you conservative? If you're conservative, that means you're really not making a whole lot of money. And to give you an example, a lot of people with the federal government, they'll be in something called the G fund. And they say, oh, I'm in the safe fund. The G fund has an average rate of 2%. In the last 3 years, its rate has been less than 1%. Well, to put it in perspective there, the rate of inflation is about 2%. So if you're investing in a fund that averages a return of 2% and the rate of inflation is 2%, you're not making any money. And then you haven't paid taxes yet. So if your tax rate is going to be 15 or 25% when you retire, but you're earning 2 against the rate of inflation, so you're earning nothing, you just have a really expensive savings account. But you have to know those kinds of things on the front end. My notion is, if you know you're going to work at least 10 years. Now, if you're within 10 years of retiring, it's a little different. But if you're going to work at least 10 years, you want to be aggressive. But you want to be aggressive in funds where you can measure what their history has given you. So you can ask for something called a prospectus. A prospectus is just a history of the fund. You don't have to know anything about the fund. Just ask the company, okay, my money's in this, my money's in, I got a cup. My money's in the cup fund. What has this cup fund done the last 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? And they should be able to share that with you. And you want to have a minimum of 10 years at least to see what that fund has done. Now, the more time, the better, because you get a good balance of that fund. So if you got a fund that averages in 20 years, say 7%, you got a good chance that your average is going to be around 7%. It may be a little higher, a little less, but your average is about that. Now, the reason I bring that up first is when you have a good average in your retirement account in terms of the investment funding, then you want to max that out first before you invest in anything else. And maxing is not matching. See, people get that confused. Matching is just what the company puts in. Maxing is $19,500 a year. That's maxing. Now, I find it interesting. I did a workshop in New York, and I was with Social Security employees, and they all look like us. And so it was about 150 people. And I said, all of you should have anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million at least in your 401k. Now, there were people ranging from ages in their early 30s to, close to 50. And I'm getting this look like, yeah, right. And I said, I'm so glad you all are giving me that look. Because we've been conditioned to think that $500,000 and $1 million is supposed to look a certain way because of what we see on television. I'm gonna tell you something right now. You got some millionaires that you go to church with, and you have no idea they're millionaires. Because you might have an expectation, and this is not a bad thing on your part, it's just what's been projected on us through social media, through media, period, that having wealth looks like stuff. And so when it comes to investing, always look at the easiest thing you can put money into first. That's the 401k you got with your job. Just make sure you're in the right funds. Don't just be in it, be intentional with what investments you're in with that particular fund. Now, if you're maxing that out and you want to look at some other investments, if you don't have this with your company you work with, I want you to consider a Roth IRA. A Roth IRA. So a Roth IRA, just the simplicity of it is with a 401k, you don't pay taxes first. You put money in, you pay taxes when you take the money out after retirement. With a Roth, you pay your taxes first. And then anything you earn plus the money you put in is then tax-free when you take it out. So you might ask the question, why in the world would I pay my taxes now? Well, here's something I want you all to do. When you have an opportunity, get your last paycheck or your next paycheck, look at your federal taxes, your biweekly or however you're paid, monthly federal taxes, and take that amount over your biweekly pay. So if your biweekly federal taxes are, I'm just going to pull up my calculator. If your biweekly federal taxes are, say, $200 and you're paid $3,500 a pay period gross, you pay 5.7% in federal taxes. but your tax bracket might be 22% based on today's bracket. It might be 22%, but you don't pay that. Why? Because you have deductions, but what you actually pay is 5.7%. So when you look at your paycheck, I want you all to take your biweekly or however you pay, your pay period, federal taxes over your gross pay for that pay period. And that'll tell you percentage-wise, you take the decimal point over 2 spaces, and then you'll get a percentage of what you actually pay. Most of you are probably at a 22 or 28% tax bracket, but none of you pay that because you have deductions. So that's what a Roth does. You would pay those taxes now because you pay less taxes with those deductions and you make more money. So you want to take advantage of that. So you're able to dump more money into your 401k if they allow it through your job. I know with the federal government and some employers, they have a Roth account. If not, consider using a Roth account with any investment firm. Do not, this is my opinion, let me preface that. I would not use a bank to invest. You need to consider something like Vanguard. It's one of the investment firms. Now, the reason I say not a bank is the bank is in business to charge interest, not give it. How much interest do you earn on your savings account or your checking account? Not much, right? In fact, to get 1%, you normally have to have about $25,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 just to get 1%. So you're not going to get 10 or 15% at the bank. But you have Vanguard, Charles Schwab, and some of these other companies, Fidelity. Do your research and find out what funds they have and what funds, typically a target fund, meaning whenever you think you might want to retire, a target fund, if you say, I want to retire in 20 years. So a target fund might be a 2040 fund, and it's a mix of stocks and bonds and mutual funds all mixed together, and it becomes more conservative on its own as you get closer to that year. Doesn't mean you have to retire in that year, but it's something you can put money into and not have to look at it every day. And it just gets conservative the closer you get to that year. So that's something to consider. Now, saying I gave you a lot, I know that. I know I gave you a lot, but that's kind of how I am. I just start thinking and I want to get more and more and more. So
no, this is actually very helpful. It's actually very helpful because I was, I talked to my brother a lot about this, and we were talking about investing, and he invests a lot in stocks, and you mentioned a few. I think you said there was like a few investments that were tied in together. He's investing into like mutual funds, things like that. So this has been very helpful. So thank you very, very much. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And I'll tell all of you something. If you desire this, I'll give you you all the link. I'm gonna go back and share my screen and take down my email address, and I will send you the link for 30 days of spending. Now, I think this is important. And the reason I want you to consider using this exercise is this exercise creates the leg of awareness. When you know where your money's going, oh my goodness, you can do so much once you know where it's going. And the reason I think this exercise works well is because it's based on your last bank statement. So it's something you've already done. Because in the book, I teach the leg of awareness is the next 10 days of spending. So people would have to write down everything they spent for the next 10 days. Oh, it's so funny because guess what people don't want to do? They don't want to spend any money. All of a sudden, nobody wants to spend money. And they're like, yo, Tim, I didn't spend anything today. I'm like, no. You're supposed to spend money. Just spend the money like you normally do. I'm like, but I thought I wasn't supposed. I said, no. I said, the next days, the 10 days of spending, just write down what you spend. But I'm trying not to. Well, why? And they're like, what do you mean, why? Why are you trying not to spend? If we never met, you'd have been spending the money the same way. The only difference is now you're becoming aware. And that's the point. So for you saying, and everybody else on the call, consider this exercise, because once you see where your money's going, now you know. And it's kind of like sharing the gospel. Once you show somebody, see, it's not your opinion. Once you show somebody something in scripture, Now they know. It's not about you anymore. Now they know. Now they have to deal with the emotion behind what the information they have. They either decide they're going to accept it and do something about it. And then some people just say, okay, I got it. And they do nothing. And sometimes we do that when we find out where our money's going. Wow, I was spending $800 a month eating out. Okay. And then they do nothing and they keep spending the same money. But now you know. So if you cannot retire the way you want to, you got to go back and think and reflect. Oh, well, what did I not change? Zig Ziglar said this. He said, when you bite into a Big Mac, you don't have a heart attack, do you? It tastes good. It's a Big Mac or a nice steak or whatnot. But if you eat a Big Mac twice a week for 20 years, you might bite into a Big Mac and have a heart attack. Why? Because you did the same thing consistently over time. And whichever decision you make consistently over time will yield you your deserved results. Either you're going to like it or you're not. So I love that you're looking at and investing, saying, but don't spread yourself out. Always look at the 401k first because you got a company matching. And here's the thing. You want to get to $100,000 in investing as fast as you can. Because once you get to 100,000, guess what? That's when your money starts moving. That's when it starts moving. I mean, consider this, 2019, most investments did anywhere between 15 and up to 30 and 40%. Yes, some did 40%. If you got 100,000, you could have made anywhere from $15,000 to $40,000 in 1 year in investments. But if you got an investment of 5 here and 20 here and 30 here and 40 there, and they're all different funds, and you're only getting 8 or 6 or 10, depending on that company, and they're charging you fees for each one, then you're not getting the max that you deserve. So just consider that.
I have two fast questions. I'm sorry to take up all the time, but I have two fast questions.
You're
what
fine.
was the
Go ahead.
name of the report you said to ask for when it's concerning the company that you're investing in?
A prospectus. So let me see. You're talking about when you're asking for something
Yes.
about a company?
Yes.
Now look here. Now look, don't get me to spelling wrong. Let me do this. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Let me type it in. Ooh, let me make sure I got this spell right. Prospectus.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Can you see that there?
I can.
Okay, because I knew I was going to spell it wrong. We got spell check now. I just forget how to spell.
It's
But
okay.
But what you do is you just ask for a prospectus over the life of the fund. So this is for everybody. This is for all of you. If you got a 401k with your job, you should tomorrow contact the company that administers your 401k or the retirement account you have and say, I'd like to get a prospectus on the funds that I'm invested in. Or how has the funds I'm invested in done since the life of that fund? You need to know that, because that's where you're putting your money. And that will determine what happens to you later in terms of your retirement account.
And the quiz you were referring to, we can go on your website and find that quiz.
You can actually get it. You can't get it on the website. I'll have to email it to you. I only have it on my website for people who I'm coaching. But I'll kind of show you what this looks like. And I'll just, if you guys just email me, I'll just send it to you. But you
Okay.
go to FedUp, you can go to fedupgroup.com. And here, and I'll just kind of show it to you guys here. Can you see my page okay?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the 30 days of spending. So in essence, what you're doing, and it kind of explains it too. You write down all your transactions for that month from your bank statement. The first column is essentials and expenses. So that's like groceries, gas, cable, things of that nature. And then you have the debt column, which is like, in this case, student loan, mortgage, things of that nature. And then miscellaneous. That's everything else. There's no other category. That's everything else. And what you'll find is a lot of times we just spend money because it's available. We just spend it. We got it, so we spend it. But then what you do is you realize where your money's going. Because sometimes people think they don't have enough money to eliminate debt. They need to work a part-time job. They need a raise. And what you realize is, no, it's just what you're doing with what you have. And once you figure that out, you can really change some things. So here on the website, I also have something called the Debt Explosion Calculator. And can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm gonna give you an example. So when I go through the 4 legs of balance with a client, let's say you have a car loan and your car is $30,000. So what do you guys think the average cost of a car payment would be?
Maybe what, $350 per month or $2 something per month?
Now I will take 2 or 3, but the average cost in America is $552. $552. So let's not even say 5. Let's say it's 400. Okay. So let's see how long it takes for somebody to pay off a car, because you know what car people do, right? They ask you, how much do you want to spend a month on a payment? See, they'll drag it out and you're just paying more interest. But let's say your car payment is $400. It's going to take you 75 months to pay it off. So what's 75 months? That's 6.25 years to pay off the car. Now, let's say you do the leg of awareness. And the gentleman said he was spending an extra $800 on eating out. Let's just bring it down to size. Let's say he was spending an extra $400. Well, what I do is I don't take all of the $400 because we don't spend the same amount every month on doing the same thing. But our behaviors are pretty much the same. So I take that number and I take 60% of it. So 60% of 400 is 240. Then I cut that in half, 120. So I take a little less than half or a third of that particular money. Now let's see how long it takes to pay off. Now it's only 57 months, only because we added $120 more a month, but we cut out more than a year, roughly a year and a half of payments going to somebody else. Well, what if we were saving $200 a month? The leg of savings is where you take half of what you're saving. Well, let's just add that in there. That's another leg. Now it only takes 48 months. You see what's happening? The goal is to eliminate the debt faster. So now you free up more cash flow. So instead of freeing up 400, now we got $620 that's freed up to either put in savings or put in a 401k. And now you can increase when people think, I can't afford to put $15,000, $16,000, $17,000 in a retirement account. Well, there's a good piece right there. Because when you don't pay somebody else, you can pay yourself. And I don't want to take a whole lot, Thomas, I don't know how your time is looking. I don't know,
Good.
Okay.
Yeah. Are there any more questions? Very good information. Writing this down as you were talking, brother. Very good question. A lot of the information I didn't know. And I think a lot of us are aware of the resources that are available. So Tim, thank you for your expertise and
Absolutely.
hard work
Absolutely.
in doing this. So if you have not seen his presentation, like I said, please let me know more about that offline, how you can obtain that. But if this information was a benefit to you, please tell somebody. Tell a friend, tell a family member about this information, because Tim is doing great kingdom work, pouring out timely information in this world in which we need in this pandemic. And so please contact him. His information is in the chat, his email and the website as well. And Tim, if I'm correct if I'm wrong, but you're collecting and obtaining clients at this time?
Yeah. And a lot of times some people can get the book and the book will take them right where they need to go. And then some people need somebody to keep them accountable. and I can do that. And what I do is I basically keep your feet to the fire. You know, sometimes we can do so much more if we get out of our own way. That's at the end of the day. And I'm the same way. I'm the same way. I mean, I'm not any different. We wrestle with a lot of the same things, just in a different way. I just don't mind telling everybody about mine, because I think when I do that, it makes me a real person to everybody. And I want them to see that and to recognize that, hey, we all dealing with the same stuff. We just have to decide if we want to allow God to be in control, or if we want to be in control. And sometimes God will let you be in control. He'll let you go ahead. Okay, you go ahead. I'll be here when you're ready. When you're ready to start listening. I mean, when I was listening to John Maxwell today, he was talking about I think it may have been Tony Evans. He was talking about the Israelites when they were in the wilderness for 40 years. It was John Maxwell. He's like, they in the wilderness for 40 years. Now, at first, he said where they were going. They were going to the promised land. They were going to the promised land. But then they started rebelling. And then so he said, okay, we're just gonna let y'all hang out here within a 2.5 mile radius for 40 years. Just hang out. Then when they finally said, okay, we're ready to listen. Okay, you ready to go to the promised land? I mean, you still got to deal with stuff. It doesn't take it away. You still have to manage whatever the challenge is. But once you decide to go ahead and manage it, you realize this wasn't as bad. Why I've been waiting so long? Have you ever dealt with that? You thought you had a fear about something, or something distracting you, or something was bothering you, and then when you really dealt with it, you realize it really wasn't that bad. That's what the enemy does. He distracts you, causes you to become focused on something that's not even real, not even true, when you got a God that made everything and gave Jesus all power in heaven and earth to give you the same power to deal with what you need to deal with. But we got to know God's word to know how to do that. And it's the same thing with money. You got to know how your money's coming, where it's going, so you can know how to deal with it. And once we do that, we good. Then you can become good for the kingdom. See, we all got gifts and talents. But if we got to pay everybody, and we got to work more because we got to pay everybody because we got debt, then we can't be used the way God wants us to, because we got to work. Or we got to go home and go to sleep because we got to get up and go to work to pay for stuff that we got 10 years ago. So it's just little things like that we have to try to change about ourselves. And then we can become so awesome for the kingdom. And if you start getting stressed and strained over it, just know that you're probably moving in the right direction. The enemy just hates you for it, because God's got some great things for you. So you can go serve him and help somebody else.
You're talking. Pass the collection plate right now. That's real good. Good, brother. That's right on time. And the church is a high, site, especially in the Black community. And I'm glad you mentioned that and intertwined your ministry, because your job is a ministry, pouring into people. You're utilizing God's gift and providing a way for folks to have spending power, right? Power and control over their money, so that they are better stewards when they do tithe. Because when you think about money, you work for money, you save money, you tithe for money. Sometimes using online giving, we stress over money sometimes. And even though money isn't an essential thing in our lives, a significant portion of our life will revolve around spending, earning, giving, and saving. And so our relationship with money is something we have to, or we can just brush off. Right? That's unnecessary. It's so necessary. So thank you so much, Tim, for that nugget. Man, you bless me, and you have some good people here on the call that are really, really blessed to hear your expertise and your voice tonight. And so I'm going to open up the floor. I have one more question I wanted to open up to the floor, to the attendees, to you real quick. And it's a simple question. I want to know kind of your answer. No one will judge you. It's just basically your thought process, and maybe some things have changed in your life since this COVID-19 pandemic has occurred, and all the stuff that we've seen currently. But my question is simply this: what does money mean to you? There's no right or wrong way to feel about money, okay? Because money means different things to different people. So what does money mean to you? Does it mean power? Does it give you a sense of well-being? Does it provide security for you? Is it ability to make a difference and give back? Okay, stability. Thank you, Kiera, for stating that. Stability, very good. So stability is a powerful word. Do you want to expound on that a little bit? I like that word. I like stability.
I said stability because, like you said, it's essential. I know there's other, like people can have multiple streams of income, but just having a major one that your main bills come from can be stability, or even saving or having. It'll be, well, it's a huge blessing to have a 401k. I know, especially like Tim was saying, when your job matches a great number, um, just having ways to invest and save, not only for retirement, but just in general for emergency situations like what's happening right now with the pandemic, or a small flat. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, so having that good chunk change in your saving account, your wallet for a rainy day when things happen abruptly in our lives, you be able to pull from it and still be comfortable and be wise. That's really good. That's really good. Again, what does money mean to you? Anybody else want to share? I'll give you just a couple minutes and then we'll wrap it up and hear our announcements for the upcoming week. What does money mean to you? Did you want to add anything to that, Tim?
Well, I was thinking about what money means to me.
Me too.
Money means, to me, it means freedom.
Okay. Do the things you always want.
Freedom to, and I'm so serious when I say this. Money means freedom where I want to take a nap this afternoon.
Right.
Freedom is my wife and I want to go on a walk in the neighborhood, and I don't have to worry about getting back because I got to go to work. Freedom is when last week we celebrated my parents' 50th wedding anniversary, and my brother, he runs a company called My Tech Partners, telecommunications firm. And we all went up. It's amazing because we're all entrepreneurs. My sister's a Broadway performer in New York. And we all went up to a nice, huge cabin in Gatlinburg and just fellowship for 3.5 days. My parents aren't getting together with other folk right now, so they celebrate and do a banquet. So we just got together with family. Freedom is, for me, with money, is creating memories that last longer than stuff. We'll be able to remember, we did our own worship service on Sunday, and my dad recorded it. That's something we'll probably look at 20 years from now. Just reflecting and remembering the freedom we had. I got a picture of my son. He was in the hot tub, so he's sitting up in the balcony in the hot tub looking out over the mountains. And I took a picture, put it on Facebook. You may have seen it. I said, this boy don't know how good his life is.
Yeah.
But it's that kind of freedom, where you don't have to worry about anything.
Great clarity. Super helpful to look at money that way, in that way. And for me, money means to me a lot of things. But if I have to pick one, money means to me is personal development or making. I wasn't always smart with my finances and my spending, just being honest, keep it real. I was horrible with money, spending everything on Amazon, eating out. Even in high school, the money that I did earn part-time, I was going out with it, right? Going out with friends, doing the things that now I wouldn't do. But my decision-making has changed. Being consistent and having a disciplined relationship with God and knowing what financial power means, according to Him, and then also personal development, creating a foundation, a stable savings list, right? I have an Excel spreadsheet with savings budget of what I can spend, what I shouldn't spend, my routine deductions for my bills, payments, all those things. So it's been working out well in my favor personally. And so I think it all starts with yourself. when you talk about behaviors and becoming better, in our topic and theme for the year is choice. And so the choice ours, that means it should be an individual, it should be a personal decision. And when it's personal, that means you're authentic about it. Because if we're being honest, if we were all saving money the way we're supposed to, you probably wouldn't be on this call trying to gain more knowledge. So that's what it means for me. It's personal, because I'm growing, I'm gaining knowledge, I'm growing, I'm learning about savings power, I'm learning about so many topics in the past couple of weeks, and even tonight, continuing to educate myself so that I continue to serve myself, serve God.
Good.
Thank you for that word. Thank you so much, Kiara, for sharing, and all of you for participating, being on the call tonight. Is there anyone else? I'll give y'all about 30 seconds. We could talk about this forever, but time is far spent. So if not, again,
I just have one. I do have one question. This has nothing to do with money, but Miss Clenitra, I'm loving these glasses. I mean,
Oh, you do? Oh, really?
I'm loving these
Yes,
glasses.
sir.
And you know, when I saw the picture, I said, "Are these Warby Parker glasses?"
Oh, what you know about that? Yes, you got some style and you got
Look at
freedom with the
that!
money and
You know
all
what?
that.
I literally just bought me a pair of Warby Parker glasses. They have one here in Nashville. It's brand new. And I bought some very similar to that. They're just kind of a blue and with the tortoise. Oh, I said, oh, I got to have these.
Yeah, I like
Now, let me tell y'all something. They not expensive either.
No,
Warby Parker is not expensive. They are not.
no, the
telling
frames
you.
are nice, but the frames are nice. But you know, being that I have to get them prescribed, being that I'm blind, I've been wearing glasses since I was 2.